to another edition of Dur or Die, the Porsche podcast, where we don't know what the hell we're talking about. My name is John Polnick, along with my partner, Dwayne Wick. We're in the Container Park. What's up, Dwayne Wick?
Oh, not a whole lot, JP. I'm just glad to be back here in the studio with you. You amazing human being, you.
Oh,
yes.
Look at this. I don't know
I
what's
missed
going
you.
on. Yeah,
I
well,
did, because
I mean,
we were off for a long time. So I'm just glad to be back with you, Gilbert, the Peanut Gallery, and a very special guest today.
We do have a special guest today. We have the general manager of Gaudin Porsche of Las Vegas, Paul Jarrett. There he is, wearing the headphones.
Happy New Year, everybody.
Dur right there. How you doing, Paul?
What's happening? I'm doing fantastic. Thanks for having me.
Thanks. Well, yeah, go ahead.
He's got a great voice for radio. I just want to throw that out there.
Well, thank you.
Yeah.
Appreciate that.
The Peanut Gallery. Oh, they're giving me so much crap today.
know,
I can't compliment somebody. I can't compliment someone.
Can't get away with.
You guys know I've complimented Jason and Chef many times. Come on.
You don't even know Jason's name. What are you talking about? Jason Adine.
One of the first things I've learned here is you can't get away with anything in the studio. So
That is so
I get
true.
it.
All right, fine. No more compliments.
Yeah.
Sheesh.
We don't actually like each other.
My voice is terrible. I get it.
It's horrible.
Paul, I am.
Yes.
But you and I have worked together on a lot of projects over the years.
Yeah.
And
It has been a lot of years.
right? I mean, we go back quite a ways.
We've got to be roughly 80 years. Wow.
80
Yeah,
years,
at least
yeah.
8 years.
Feels
Yeah,
like
it's been a
80
long
with
time.
JP sometimes.
Yeah, I mean, every minute is
10x.
exactly.
Yeah.
So I don't know now that you're the general manager of Gaudin Porsche, this is fairly recent. You've been the general manager for about a year now.
Yeah, just over a year.
Just about a
That's
year.
Right.
And you're kind of I mean, you've been around Porsche as a brand, and obviously this is a Porsche podcast. And the company just celebrated 100 years.
Yes.
Not
Cheers.
Porsche, but the Gaudin
Yes.
company.
So Gaudin Motor Company, actually. So George Gaudin started the company, and he was a lettuce farmer in Central California. And the short answer is he made some modifications to a Ford pickup truck and really kind of began our theme of innovation and creativity at Gaudin Motor Company. But Ford got wind of the things he was doing and kind of asked him about some design and engineering work. And he said, I don't want your money. I want to be a Ford dealer. So we're actually 101 years old. So January 2nd, 1922, when we first started serving our community.
Is there still Gaudin family members out there?
Yes.
And involved in ownership, or are they?
You know, that's that's an
name?
important question,
Okay.
Dwayne. So I got to tell you, we should always be clear because everyone knows that the Ackerman family runs Gaudin Motor Company here in Las Vegas now,
Right.
or not everybody, but those that do know, and they wonder, well, what happened with the name? And basically, George Gaudin had only 2 daughters, and so Jackie and Jean Gaudin, and the 2 of them married a couple of fellas, and one of them married Ray Andrews. Jackie became Jackie Andrews, and then Jean Gaudin married Don Ackerman, which is Gary's dad.
Okay.
So that's where the name change happened. But there are some really cool name things that had happened, and George's middle name was Clay, and Clay Carr is a dear family member of ours doing some great Porsche business in Southern California. You can look him up.
Oh wow.
So a lot of great Gaudin lineage happening, but that's a great question. So we just celebrated 101 years now, and we've sold everything. If you can think of the brand, we've sold it. We have also automotive brand. We've sold airplanes, tractors. We've sold boats. We've been a Sunseeker dealer in the past. So a lot of fun pieces of history over 101 years.
So, all right, you're looking at the next 100 years. You're going, all right.
That's right.
Jaguar just announced, was it a couple of days ago, that they are going to halt. They're not going to make cars anymore in like 2033 or 39. They just announced that they're in the last 10 years of making cars. I mean, maybe this is a rumor or whatever, but that's supposedly. I mean, you look at the trends right now. Everyone is with the WEF, the World Economic Forum, and everyone talking about green things and everyone talking about EVs. And I know Porsche is making EVs, but really, every time you turn on the Twitter machine or the news or whatever, you're hearing someone on the flat screen saying, "Hey, you're not going to be driving cars at some point. Cars are not part of the future. We've got to get, they're not safe. They're bad for the environment, blah, 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 blah." How does the general manager of a luxury brand that we all love here. How do you make plans for not just the next 100 years, but hell, the next 10 or 20? I mean,
Right.
These are immediate right now questions, because I'm sure you're making, as a dealership, principal, you're not going in and going, oh, okay, well, what's going to happen today? And, we'll figure out tomorrow some other time. I mean, you got to be making plans years in advance. How do you see the current landscape?
What a fantastic line of questions, JP. I really like it. So to frame my answer, I first want to say that in 100 years, we've already weathered an unbelievable set of circumstances, right? In 100 years. I mean, we started selling cars. A lot of our buyers had never driven a car before, or they didn't have paved roads where they were, or they were still wondering what they're going to do with their horse and their buggy, right? And then, of course, we had, a couple of world wars. How about some other wars? How about a depression? How about recessions? We've weathered all kinds of things to get where we are today, and it was tens of thousands of team members that got us here. So to answer your question, we will continue to weather. Now, as a family, we continue to look at other diversification options. Ironically, Jaguar was the last brand with which we represented. Another great podcast there. But to answer your question with Porsche, because I think we need to do that, is Porsche is committed to all forms of mobility as long as it still has a steering wheel. So obviously we know what they've been doing with the EV.
Can we quote you on that?
You sure can. And they're going to have, and they're still focused on investment on ICE vehicles and also on hybrid vehicles. Here's something that not a lot of people are talking about. You do hear about it. But Porsche has a massive investment on synthetic fuel, right? It's coming to F1. And Porsche believes that they're like a pioneer in the technology. But I'm using that to answer your question, JP.
They turned the factory on in Brazil, right? The biofuel.
That's
factory.
right.
Yeah.
There's a lot of efforts, but that's some of the effort. But I was trying to answer JP's question of what has happened in the past to get us here and to be a stable, healthy organization. How we look at diversification going forward, what's happening with other brands, and what's happening with Porsche, right? We're only going to build vehicles that have a steering wheel for the driver and the enthusiast. But we're going to have
stick shift?
Multiple applications. Don't know about the 3 pedals, but maybe for episode 3. But then you talked about, people won't have cars anymore, right? Well, that has to do with environmental consciousness. So that's the application of the synthetic fuel, you see, is to try to get more towards a responsible driver.
I would love to pull up to a gas station, or maybe if I have to drive to Gaudin to get special fuel so I can continue to drive my vintage Porsche, that'd be amazing. I would totally do that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like I'm talking like 15 or maybe less than that, maybe 5 years from now when they ban all ICE vehicles. Hopefully not. But I mean, it'd be cool to be able to, put that, a fuel like that into a vintage vehicle to keep it on the road.
Yeah. I think that there's a lot of theorizing that we could do here. One of the things I theorize about is like leaded fuel, for example.
Okay.
There aren't really any vehicles running leaded fuel, right? Yeah. I mean, it's literally lethal. And
interesting fact, aviation.
Yeah.
What do you think they use?
Oh yeah, they still
and
have
they're
some.
Spreading that all over the sky.
That's
why
right.
Why don't we regulate aviation fuel with the lead, because it helps?
Don't even get us started on
we don't want those
ships,
things
but
falling.
that's a whole other story.
Is this the Dare or Fly podcast?
Nice
look at that! He
pull,
rhymed. He rhymed. He did it.
Whoa.
No, I mean, look. I think that
Thank you.
I think that a part.
I will need your guys' Venmo accounts, please. Thank you.
I say it all the time on the show. I think the last bastion of auto enthusiasm is going to be off-road. I think that part of the forces against cars aren't just the environment. I think oftentimes that's just kind of like a red herring. I think it's an anti-mobility thing. And I love that Porsche as a brand is devoted to vehicles with steering wheels, because it would seem that the future is hailing a box. You're going to have an app on your phone that's going to be from Lexus or Nissan, and a really nice, clean, shiny box is going to come and pick you up when you hit the button on your phone, or one that's full of some kid's Cheerios from the last ride. So, I mean, it's driving a car on the street. The idea of driving a car with a combustible engine and gasoline in it will just make the Karens of the future like, oh my gosh, how could you let this person drive? It doesn't have the safety mode. It's not connected to all the other cars. Oh my gosh, it's scary.
Are you guys going to get one of the off-road vehicles in the showroom?
Say yes.
I
I have that was part of the NDA conversation, I think.
Oh,
but
okay.
JP,
Maybe.
JP, I gotta talk. You gotta
Just wink at me
again. You're leading me into like a really awesome like piece of theory, right? And it's the theory of need. Okay, so you said, oh, we don't need to be driving cars anymore.
You need the box to get to work, or
right? You know, you need it.
Yeah.
Right, you
But
need
then
transport.
What do you want?
Do you need to go off road? Do you need to have a steering wheel? Maybe not. Has Porsche ever provided a product that anybody needs?
Tractor.
Okay, fair enough. And I'll bet you there was other more affordable options, but I don't know what the brand heritage was.
The
at that time.
Lamborghini tractor.
But you know, so yeah, exactly. So they're really, I think that Porsche's whole engagement is to find the place with which we live emotionally, and people live and feel emotionally prior to everything else. We try to act like we don't, but it's not really the case. And I think that that's kind of the secret sauce that Porsche provides. They provide the available opportunity to create a symbolic experience, something that is memorable, something that hits the peaks of life. When life is mundane, it takes the mundane out of all things that are routine. So it's exciting to go to work. It's exciting to drop your kids off at school. It's exciting to go to the airport. And no, you don't need any of that. And that's
what if the policymakers say you shouldn't be allowed to have that? And I'm sorry to be a black pill here, but that's the thing that I think is that's the thing that keeps me up at night when I think about being a car enthusiast. I mean, is that going to happen in 5 years, 10 years, or 50 years? Cars, mobility, being able to get in a car and drive where you want to go. I think the writing is on the wall. I think the people that are alive right now are the last ones that are going to be able to do that.
That's why we have to colonize a new planet. And it's going to be car planet.
Well, but seriously, there's, America is a big place. Europe is very densely populated, so it's easier to implement policies that restrict people's individual mobility there. But here we have rural areas. We have that off-road thing. I mean, going out in a Razor car or going out in something in the desert, off-grid. If you've seen Minority Report, what do? They've got the little spaceshipy things that when you're in the city, it hooks up on the grid, and then when you get out of the city, then you can self-drive or whatever.
My counter to that
how much
argument,
longer is that going to happen? Around.
People are always talking about flying cars in the 50s.
Hey guys, I got to tell you about our friends Gaudin Porsche of Las Vegas and Gaudin Classic. If you're looking for a new Porsche or a classic, you got to call our friend Steve at Gaudin. This guy.
1989 linen gray metallic G50 cab.
Is that going to be for sale?
It is going to be for sale. The car only has 65,000 miles.
Save yourself the hassle of screwing around with all the auctions like we always talk about, and just talk to Steve. He'll find you the classic Porsche you're looking for. Gaudin Porsche of Las Vegas.
If you don't subscribe to Bid Nerds on YouTube right now, I'm going to shoot this 997. If you said, wait, that's a 996, you're a nerd. So subscribe to the new YouTube channel, Bid Nerds.
Get those nerds!
5 years, we could have bans on car policies that ban cars.
Right, because of safety. It's all about, the Karens want safety. The idea, whether or not it flies or drive, it doesn't have to fly for the general public to be scared of cars in general. I'm not saying it's happening right now, but there is definitely a portion of the population, call it 10%, maybe it's single-digit percent, but there's a significant portion of the general population would be very happy if cars straight up didn't exist. And
those people are stupid.
Well, yeah, I mean, and how many kids don't even get their driver's licenses anymore?
Yeah,
those kids are stupid too.
Agreed. So what do we do for those kids that are sitting there in the back of a minivan their whole life and they have zero interest in getting a driver's license? They don't have that aspiration, that want, that all those wonderful things that you described, Paul, I agree with. And those are things that I wanted and have been fortunate enough to be able to experience. But how many young people even want that?
I mean, I think that the only answer that we have today is trying to meet the people where their passion and enthusiasm exists. The vehicular conversation is something that is interesting when you come to legislation and regulation. I mean, that's an interesting conversation certainly to have.
Yeah.
But I think that any brand can engage passion and enthusiasm, like where that particular person exists in that possibility. And what I'm trying to say is that it doesn't maybe necessarily have to be vehicular, and that's part of the diversification. Of course, you can't manage a massive manufacturer internationally of automobiles if you're not selling a lot of automobiles. So I do understand the concern, but I think that that's where you can match that opportunity. And I just don't see, I understand people that are just born, maybe they're the last set of people that are driving themselves to work. I guess I don't see, I guess I don't know if that is reality, but I just don't see human beings that are naturally enthusiastic, emotional, experiential people. They're social people. I just don't see that part of the thrill of existing leaving us in our lives. I don't see any legislators saying, you know what, you're right. You don't get to drive an automobile anymore.
Well, I mean,
maybe
I am blackpilling
thinking
here, there, but I could list a whole bunch of them that are saying exactly that.
Yeah.
Like I could quote guys that are saying things like this. And again, I don't think it's a majority. I think it's a minority of folks, of policymakers. But let's face it, policymakers are a minority of the general population. It doesn't take many policymakers to all of a sudden make things very, very different very quickly. I love that Porsche is, they're going at it with a baseball bat. They're, okay, fine, we'll make alternative fuels. That sounds really cool to me. Is that something that's scalable? I don't know. Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. Is it like what Elon said 20 years ago that in 20 years or 10 years from now, everyone who owns a car will be like someone that owns a horse now? It's like people that, if you own a horse now, it's because you really want a damn horse and you have a bunch of property. How far away are we from that with cars? I really do, unfortunately and pessimistically, think that that's coming, whether or not it's 5 years or 100 years. Or 200 years.
No, and it's interesting. I think that it'd be fun to kind of dig into that a little bit, just because, I just want to say that even though I do understand the analogy, and it's a great Elon analogy, but the efficiency of an automobile just far supersedes a horse, and plus cars don't poop on the road, but
doesn't the efficiency of a hailed box that is centrally controlled and not by an individual, so that you get rid of all the congestion and all the inefficiencies. Isn't that exactly why the horse is in the stable and not being ridden to work?
I knew you were going with this in terms of the efficiency of the automation.
You made the argument, not me.
The automation of the box.
Yeah.
I get it.
Yeah.
But I'm saying if the box is the efficient way to move, then I still think humans will find a more emotionally efficient way to move. But maybe it's outside of the large congested areas.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it might just look different. So there might be a steering wheel in the box, because Porsche always wants a steering wheel, and it might be branded, and it might have some virtual,
But that's the thing is, like,
we can't imagine what the next 5 generations will want in terms of their stimulation.
We can look at what Porsche has already done with their what did they call it when they had, was it the Passport, where they had the
Porsche Drive.
Porsche Drive.
It was Passport originally.
Passport, yeah. So where you don't own the car, you just pay a fee per month, and then you get your pick whether or not you want a convertible or an SUV or whatever, which was pretty darn cool. But I think that's the thing, is that, does your box have a steering wheel? Well, why do you even own the box at some point if it's just purely transportation?
Yeah, I was going to get into that briefly, but basically shared ownership is really what our forecasts show us, is that the enthusiasm of individual ownership, and really what that is pride of ownership, right? Like, this is mine. That is waning. And really? So shared ownership, though. So it's kind of like when I'm experiencing or I'm operating the automobile, like, that's a thrill, but I don't need that very often, or I only need it periodically. So maybe there will be an automated, organized way for the 6 of us to own it, you see? And then if the box can operate itself, well, if you work at this time, you're going on this trip at this time, the box will go and charge itself and depart your location and show up at your other shared person's location when it needs to be there. There is, by the way, a massive efficiency conversation to have here, because if you think about your daily driver and how often you actually operate it, The car is designed to operate 24 hours a day in theory.
Yeah, so why not
under proper
efficiently
maintenance?
take advantage of that?
So you're using it 40 minutes a day or 95 minutes a day. So there's a big conversation about like how to operate the box more efficiently. And there is something to be said inside of that.
I want to switch gears for a second. Like if I'm Porsche, what's the number one thing that you want from Porsche as a GM of a dealership? Like what are the things that you're looking to, both from like a model lineup or from like a I don't know, a brand perspective? What are the things that a GM wants from Porsche?
I mean, I think that like everybody, any business partner, you just want great, clear communication for what the direction that they are going in is. Because what's unusual is our business is really simple. I mean, it's a local family-owned business. We have 3 rooftops. There's not a lot more complexity beyond that. Our CEO is not in Texas with 150 stores, right? We're just a local company, local family company. So we're going to operate just to serve the community, serve our team, serve our guests. Pretty standard operation when it comes to that.
What's the next?
But from Porsche's point of view is that they're going to make international decisions at all time, and we're just looking to have great communication so that we can step with them, we can partner with them, we can communicate properly with them to our mutual client base.
I have to say, from a personal experience, like the classics kind of evolution at Gaudin has been awesome.
Yeah,
like
thank you.
I am excited about where the service department is going to. I never would have considered to take my classic to Gaudin in the past, probably as recent as 5 years ago. Maybe that's my own bias. Maybe I was wrong, but now I really feel that it is probably the premier place to take my classic. I'm actually planning on having it aligned there probably as soon as I get it finished. So my question to you is, where do you see the classics department? Where do you see what's next for Gaudin beyond like these little niche like things like the classic department?
Right. Well, I really appreciate the kind words, by the way. And it's been interesting as we journey into more and more complexity and experience with the classic side of the Porsche world and culture to see just how many people kind of were maybe even unaware of the capabilities that we had. But I get it. But recently we had an event just 3 or 4 months ago, and it was an event that was full of folks that really wouldn't maybe more naturally or more logically be in our showroom. You wouldn't assume so much the theme of the event.
Sure.
And because it was at a Porsche store, there was many people that brought Porsches that maybe we don't see as often. You get close to the community in the neighborhood, but then there are still thousands of people that own Porsches. What I'm getting at is there were a half a dozen classic Porsches outside, and 5 of those folks had never had their car to our Porsche center ever and had no idea we could work on a Porsche more than, say, 10 years old. And they all kind of had that idea, like, oh, you all work on old Porsches too?
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, we call them classic, but so that has to do with our communication with the community. But Steve and Dan and Jeff and Victor and there's many more others that go into that story. But we have been so focused on building the infrastructure to support the classic community. I think we've had the passion for decades. But we're the very first classic partner by designation just about 8 years ago. Right. And so
what does that mean though? What did that truly mean?
Yeah, that's actually a big deal with Porsche. So give you guys a little explanation is that there's such thing as in Porsche as a center and a partner. So a partner means that you have the partnership and you're engaging in the business model. A center means you have a literal physical building. So as far as I know, there are maybe 2 Porsche Classic centers in the world. The biggest one is in the Netherlands. You got to look it up. It's unbelievable. Go to Google Earth. But anyway, so the first Classic partner means that we are able to engage in a full Classic business, and that means representing a 52,000 part catalog, which is a massive undertaking. People don't realize that. Like
I was going to say, the parts department is awesome from a Classic perspective, because then, I can get the parts there and I can pick them up locally, which is huge.
Thank you, man.
Yeah.
And I got to tell you, imagine if you're trying to support a parts catalog that's 50,000 deep on 40, 50-year-old parts. You don't just like go to the warehouse and pick them up, and you don't just go to Bosch and like have more made. It's very complex. I mean, some of these blueprints are, mom and pop, father and son in Germany in the 50s, you're trying to remake parts. But so it's a big undertaking. So, But no, thank you for the kind words. We continue to serve as best we can.
All right, guys. Well, hey, everyone. Thanks for hanging out for another episode of Dur or Die. Dwayne, why don't you tell everyone to hit the subscribe, like, and notification button?
Hit the subscribe, like, and notification button. I also wanted to say Gaudin's having a unveiling February
4th, 9 a.m.
9 a.m. for a big project car.
Come on
right?
down. We've done a few classic restoration challenges, but we're really getting in rhythm. And so this is kind of our kickoff event for this year.
I'm excited for that. I think
Do
it's gonna be a
people
lot of
need
fun.
to RSVP or anything like that?
Yes, RSVP at GaudinPorscheLV.com. Please RSVP. Get on down February 4th, Saturday morning, 9 a.m. Gaudin Porsche, Las Vegas.
And if you're in Vegas, swing by the dealership, check it out, and say hi
Come
to
ask
Paul.
for me.
Yeah.
Come on, ask for me. There's
Yeah,
a couple
you can
of Pauls in
actually show up and talk to Paul.
there. Yes, I'm there all the time. Just ask my wife.
That's true. All right, guys. Thanks for hanging out. Hit that subscribe, like, and notification button. Share this video or one of our other episodes, and we will see you in just a few days on the next episode of Dur or Die. See ya.
See ya.
Thanks, Paul.
Thanks,
you.
everybody.